That down. Let's move on to this, shall we? You know, one of the films coming out in March that has a lot of people talking, some for the good reasons and some for the not good reasons, is Snow White. It's coming out. Now, the trailer, let's just call it what it is. The trailer has had very divided opinions on it. I'll be honest with you. I really like the trailer. I'm not saying the movie's going to be great. I'm definitely not saying that. But I like the trailer. It felt kind of like a very, what's the word? It felt very fairy tale-ish. It felt very much kind of in that zone. My one concern about it is I felt a little bit of Snow White and the Huntsman kind of vibes in it, which is not necessarily a good thing. But how would it do, and are people going to go out to see it? Well, we've got our first tracking numbers for it. And they're actually not bad. This comes us from Deadline, where they write the following. Disney's long-awaited live-action reboot of its 1937 animated classic Snow White doesn't open until March 21st. However, box office forecasts are out on the Rachel Zegler, Gal Gadot starring movie. Quorum now reports a 3-day start for the Mark Webb. By the way, I totally forgot that Mark Webb directed this. I really like Mark Webb, as a matter of fact. Anyway, directed the movie of 63 to 70 million, while other sources believe 65. So right in that range, 65 to $70 million range. At this point, time is fair. As a comp, the 2014 Angelina Jolie Sleeping Beauty live action spinoff opened to 69.4 million back in the early summer of 2014. At that level, it would rep the highest grossing domestic opening for the Golden Globe winning Ziegler, whose Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, ranks as the actress's best opening box office with $44.6 million. All right. So at this point, Quorum is saying they're looking at $65 to $70 million opening weekend. Is that good or bad? Well, let's compare it to some of the more recent films that have opened up. All right. So if you look at something like, you can take me down there, Jonathan. If you look at something like Moana, Moana, $1 billion film, had a $139 million opening. Wicked had a $112 million opening. Red One had a $32 million opening, went on to make 185. But then a couple of bigger films, Sonic the Hedgehog, it would be a bigger opening than Sonic the Hedgehog that opened at 60 million. And Sonic the Hedgehog went on to make over $470 million. More interesting is Mufasa, which did open on the same weekend as Sonic.
Yes,
it did, right.
Yeah.
Mufasa, which opened on the same weekend as Sonic the Hedgehog, only had a $35 million opening weekend, but has gone on to make over $670 million at the worldwide box office. So you're talking about a $65 to $70 million opening fits in pretty well on this list, clearly behind the big pop culture names like Moana, Wicked, but ahead of things like Sonic, ahead of things like Mufasa. Then it all becomes about how good or bad the movie is, right? That's all about that. Like, yeah, Mufasa opened almost half of what Sonic opened to. And I didn't even like Mufasa that much, but it had legs, man. It's after 8 weeks, it's still in the top 4. Yeah. It's still in the top 4 after 8 weeks and has made more money than what's blown Sonic out of the water, actually. So can it do that? Can it not? It's all going to be about how good or bad the movie is. But for me, if I were to be asked the question, do I think a $65 to $70 million opening is a good thing for Snow White? I'd have to say, considering that's higher than I thought it would be, if it ends up being 65 to 70, I think they have to be happy with that start and see where things go from there. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode, NordVPN. All right, let's be real. There's nothing worse than wanting to stream your favorite show or watch a live game only to find out it's blocked in your country. But guess what? With NordVPN, that is never a problem. With just one click, you can switch your virtual location and access content from anywhere in the world. I have loved using NordVPN. Whether I'm traveling and using public Wi-Fi or just shopping online, NordVPN keeps my personal info safe and private. By switching my location, I can even save money on flights, hotels, and subscriptions. It's like a cheat code for getting the best deals. NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world, so there's no buffering when I'm streaming. Plus, their threat protection feature blocks blocks, malware, trackers, and phishing attempts, keeping my devices safe 24/7. And with just one account, I can protect up to 10 devices, so my whole setup is covered. So to get the best discount on your NordVPN plan, head to nordvpn.com/John Campea, and our link will even give you 4 extra months for free on the 2-year plan. Plus, there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Links in the description. Check it out now. Chris, you hear these numbers, good, bad, and how do you think it'll actually shake out?
First of all, Sonic was so much better. There's no justice in this world. I just needed to say that really quickly. I feel like this is a really good number for this movie. I personally am not particularly excited about this. I did not like that trailer.
A lot of people didn't.
I think the CGI dwarves are nightmare fuel.
I love them. I think they look good.
You know, things are so subjective, right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
They look so much like the movie version of stuff, so I can totally see why other people would like it. For me, that was, no thank you.
Right.
And on top of that, there are other people, too, who just don't like Rachel Zegler's stance on the Snow White character in general. So there's been a whole bunch of different issues, at least within the movie theater community, right? The movie-going community. For our average going audience, though, it's going to be families who are like, oh, hey, Snow White movie. I'll take the kids to see that. They're not engulfed in all of the controversy that's been around this film, right? Like all of us are who do this show. So I feel like it'll do well enough, but these movies have such a bad track record. I mean, there was Cinderella, and then everything else has been pretty mid. So I don't feel like these live actions are going to do particularly well unless we all go to the theater and have our minds blown. And maybe that'll happen. Maybe I go see this movie and then word of mouth will pick up and this will really like have some legs. But I don't see this really blowing off the box office doors. I think this is a very respectable opening number that they should be proud of, given the everything about this marketing.
But some of their live action stuff has done very well.
Financially, yeah.
I mean, yeah. So like you look at something like Beauty and the Beast, which, by the way, I didn't think Beauty and the Beast was bad. I just didn't think it was particularly great.
It's just not good.
It made over $1 billion.
Yeah, it's a movie.
They've had others make over $1 billion. I mean, even Little Mermaid, when it had a kind of a struggling opening weekend, and everybody then said initially that movie's going to, they proclaimed it a flop. It came close to $500 million when it was all said and done.
I suppose then I should also
rephrase
too. I don't think it's going to do well here.
Okay. So you're not talking about worldwide overall.
Yeah,
you mean
my mistake.
domestically.
Sorry, y'all. I should have been specific.
What are you going to say, Jonathan?
It actually made
569 dudes.
Yeah,
So that's like 100 million more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rob, you hear these numbers. Are you surprised by the numbers? Did you think they'd be higher or lower? Do you think it'll come in this high? And if it does come in here, is it something they should be happy with?
Well, here's the thing. You know, in our little Twitter, YouTube ecosystem, it has no bearing on the real world.
Yeah.
The real world, you have parents that want to take their kids to go see entertaining, family-friendly films. And I think Disney's live action material has pretty much delivered the goods. I mean, getting Kenneth Branagh to direct Cinderella was a stroke. Here's what I don't understand about this film. You know how we saw there was early photographs of actors in various, they look like a Renaissance fair group of dwarves.
Oh, yeah.
What I don't understand about this movie, which is going to be perplexing to me forever, Peter Jackson proved in the first Hobbit film how delightful great actors playing dwarves can be. The scene in Bilbo's house, you know, when they're there and they clean up you had all these great actors. And I was really looking forward because I worked on the first Snow White release on DVD. I love Snow White. It's the first Disney feature film, one of the first animated features of all time. And I really thought that they were going to do what Peter Jackson did with The Hobbit, which get all these great actors.
And just do like the forced perspective camera
and all that. Because why wouldn't you? Now, what we've wound up with, and this is just my own bias, but it's a weird hybrid of the animated dwarves with everything else is live action. And I have a hard time when I've seen the trailers. It's incongruous to me. Like I can't, like I've loved all the live action Disney. You and I love Cinderella.
Oh, I love Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella was great.
When Helena Bonham Carter shows up, you know, as not the evil stepmother, but you know, the woman that's going to give her I love
fairy godmother.
Fairy godmother.
Yeah.
Helena Bonham Carter. I loved her playing the fairy godmother. And one of the joys of these Disney live action movies is seeing who they get to play these parts. You know, and Gal Gadot's. I mean, that doesn't work for me either. You're the fairest one of all. Like, why are you asking yourself in a mirror? You're beautiful. You're Wonder Woman. But that's okay. I still want this movie to be great. I do. And do I think it's going to make a lot of money? I do. The same way.
Really? You think it's gonna make a lot?
I think it's
Okay.
going to make. Look, if the movie delivers the goods,
Right.
If
yeah.
you're a 9-year-old girl, and you go with your mom, and you sit in the movie and you're munching on your popcorn, and there's a few good songs, and you have a good time, forget all the politics and all that. Is it entertaining? And I think that, well, with all the delays and how long they've worked on this movie, I would hope it's entertaining, because I don't want to see this movie be bad.
Yeah,
I want it to be good.
Here's the funny thing, because I'm almost the polar opposite of you in the sense that, I mean, of course, I want it to be great. I do. I think my favorite part of the trailer was actually the CG dwarves, because like I looked at that and I felt, because the rest of it again to me had the vibes of Snow White and the Huntsman.
Yeah, because they've changed the story.
A little bit, right? Which hey, you know, Kenneth Branagh did too, and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, and you give them
But he's
license
Kenneth
to
Branagh.
do that. But I mean, I think that's the part that delighted me the most, because I loved seeing the dwarves the way I grew up with them, then kind of manifested on screen that way, and it worked for me. Again, am I still gonna think it works when I watch the movie? Maybe or maybe not. I mean, that I have no idea if the movie's going to be good, but
I think you're right,
We'll
though.
see.
It does have Snow White and the Huntsman vibes.
Yeah.
Because they flipped the story. It's no longer the fairy tale that the original was.
I mean, much closer than Snow White and the Huntsman was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I feel like these dwarves kind of give me some Shrek vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't disagree, but to
But I
me,
don't-
that's not a bad thing.
But I'm not, yeah, and it depends on the context. So I'm on the fence, because if it works in context, I'll be like, well, then that's cool. But otherwise, it's like, oh, that's creepy.
It just feels a little too Roger Rabbit-y to me right now. They feel so
Where they're the
animated.
only thing that's CG and everything else is
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
We'll have to see, yeah.
By the way, I've never been this excited to see Gal Gadot in a role. Because, you know, I historically am not the biggest fan of Gal Gadot. I have always thought she's got a lot of potential, a lot of promise. I've never thought she's been the strongest actress. Just being, you know, coming clean about that. But when I saw her in the trailers for this and in some of the preview stuff, I'm like, I think she's found the role that might be the opportunity to be a transitional point for her to really sink her teeth into something that's going to really be strong for her. And I think she could be a great Wicked stepmother. I don't know. We'll see. Whether or not the movie's going to be good, I think it's a coin toss. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? The reports are saying this movie's going to open to 65 to 70 million, which not on Moana or Wicked levels would put it higher of an opening than Sonic or Mufasa. And those movies ended up doing pretty well. Are you surprised by those numbers? Do you think it'll open higher, maybe lower? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.